Faire la grasse matinée, and welcome to Shift+F1, a podcast about speedy race cars. That, by the way, is French for to make a fat morning.
A fat morning. Gross matinee?
Yes.
I thought you said glass matinee, which would
Class.
mean... Class.
Class. I'm trying to do the guttural R.
It sounded like glass matinee, which would, I believe, be ice cream morning, which I was very excited about. But anyway.
Also, sounds pretty good. A fat morning, yeah, that's an expression for sleeping in. Something that I'll bet a number of drivers will get to do this weekend because they all live in Monaco. This, by the way, is not to be confused with the expression that means to accidentally oversleep, which is to have a pillow breakdown.
Oh, very good. I like that a lot. That's strong. Yeah.
That's good. I'm Drew Scanlon. Joining me, Danny O'Dwyer. How are you, Danny?
I'm doing fantastic. This is an incredible idiom to pull out on today because you know who did not have a glass matinee is my mother, who, if you're watching this on YouTube, I will pivot the camera over to the bed she has been sleeping in my office.
Oh, no.
And I had to get this poor jet-lagged Irish woman up at 6:55 in the morning.
Man.
So shout out to our title sponsor elect this week, Miriam O'Dwyer. Shout out, Mom. She's gone upstairs to sleep somewhere else.
Sorry, Danny's mom.
Yeah, no worries.
I hope you've got a lot of coffee there.
She drinks tea. She's Irish, so she'll have
course.
4 cups of tea.
Also joining us, Rob Zachney. How are you, Rob?
Oh, doing pretty well. Sad to say, arrivederci, Imola. Sorry, I've been working on my Italian, sort of like Lewis Hamilton, right? I want to just try it out and show people what I've been learning lately.
Tifosi is going to love this. Excellent. If you are new to this podcast, a very warm welcome to you. And if you are new to Formula One itself, we've got an episode just for you, our preseason primer. Assumes no prior F1 knowledge and explains how the sport works and who everybody is. So if you'd like to go back and listen to that, it's episode 298. Also, this show would not be possible without our audience over at patreon.com/shiftf1, where every month we release ad-free versions of the podcast early, along with bonus podcasts and videos that are exclusively for those patrons that cover racing documentaries and films, F1 video games, experiments with other racing series, and a lot of weird things. So if you would like to support the show and get access to all that fun stuff, head over to patreon.com/shiftf1 or click the link in the show notes. What's going on this month in Patreon land, Danny?
We are just about to record our Patreon-exclusive podcast about the movie Ronin, which was voted for by our incredible patrons over at patreon.com/shiftf1. And, of course, a massive shout-out to all of our incredible title sponsors, including a new one who simply goes by Dan.
Oh.
Beautiful. I don't know who it is.
Is Reichert paying it forward?
I was about to say, maybe he's in the world of independent media now, and he's like,
he was on an episode of Alt F1. Do you remember that? We did a talent exchange where I went on their wrestling show. And
oh my God.
Came on.
So it was me and Dan, was it?
I
guess.
Or me and Dan, or maybe all three of us. I don't remember. It was a while ago.
What are all these cars doing, Drew? I don't know what. Come on.
There's all these fellas in here driving around.
Yeah.
In circles.
Yeah. Anyway, shout out. Sorry to the other Dan who has just been probably either doxed or is not this person. But shout out to Dan, Matt on Harmony, Deange, It's a Me Ferrario, Get Rich O'Die Ryan, my Irish brother, Agave ATX, Cyphus Training, Turf SCS, at Team Blackjack, Michael Maves, Cigarettes, Olivia Evans, TelemetryDeck.com, FTC. Drew is still laughing at cigarettes.
Still good. Still funny.
I'm talking about Drew Scanlon, not necessarily Drew Stewart, Bailey Foote, Jason Chadwick, Abraham Getchell, Bunny Meme. I don't know what Snigs has done this week, but they appear to put in either a cat has mashed on their keyboard or they have suddenly moved to that Welsh town with the very long name.
That does look like what that is, yes.
It does a little bit, but it doesn't have the go at the end, which I recognize. So
give it a try, Danny.
Oh my God. Lan par of Pilgunvin Locken Gogol Rech Chile Mam Drob Williams T Stylio. There you go.
Wow, that's pretty good.
I don't know. Hopefully they're okay. that's my main worry.
All right. Blink
exactly.
Twice.
Yes. Alex Goucher, Max Faltar, Jeff Foster, Troy Stammer, William Romph, Lachlan the Maddened Man, Samurai Love Story, and Jason Kelly. Thank you all so much for your incredible.
Is that what we're getting in Ronin?
Patronage.
Samurai Love Story?
Hey, that's a good point. That's, yes.
Great.
I like it. Maybe that's what it was all about. We come full circle.
in addition to a car chase.
At least one.
All I saw Ronin. We'll get into it, I guess, in the pod,
nice.
like a long time ago. So.
Oh yeah, I'm not sure if I've ever actually watched the entire movie. I've definitely watched the chase when I was younger, but I don't know.
Yes.
I'm excited.
Well, speaking of cars. Formula One. We've got a lot to talk about in this episode because not only did the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix just happen, but the Monaco Grand Prix is coming up. So we've got a doubleheader episode.
It's city-state season. Let's go. Vatican, fucking wise up.
Get in on this.
Get in here, guys.
Chicago Pope. Get on it.
San Marino were in the Eurovision as well. I'm not sure if you watched it over the weekend.
Oh, I did not. No.
Country of 33,000 people. Obviously, they just have to. Who put your hand up? Who wants to be our entry this year? They did come last in the grand finals, and their song was mostly about being Italian, which I feel like should sort of tell people that maybe San Marino shouldn't be getting in. But then Israel's in, and they're not a country in Europe, so I don't sure what the rules
Isn't
are.
Australia, aren't they also?
I think they also were maybe in a while ago, but like if we're doing, we're just at a certain point we're just saying white people. You know what I mean? like that's like.
This is the root of a lot of global support for Israel.
Right, America, come on, just come on in. We'll let the English-speaking Canadians come over. I guess French is.
That's a bridge.
I think they're kicking Israel out of Eurovision, or it's just a couple countries that are like protesting.
Yeah, well, they only got added in like maybe 5 or 6 years ago. I think I'm no Eurovision expert anymore.
First, we get America into F1, then it's Eurovision. I'm playing the long game here, Danny.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I feel at this stage maybe most of Eurovision's viewers are in America. So, it's taking over the world. Much like F1, That's right. It is taking over the world.
Let's get to it. A lot of upgrades here for Imola, and as always, there's a great video on F1's YouTube channel about these from Sam Collins. So I will link that in the show notes because I feel like they are. He does this for I think each round every time there's some upgrades, but I feel like they're. Full disclosure, I have not actually watched this episode, but it seems like a lot of upgrades were working this weekend.
Yes.
At Imola. So I'll put that in the show notes. Love Sam Collins. We also saw a new tire compound this weekend, the very soft C6 serving as the soft tire this weekend, which we only saw in free practice and qualifying because it was, practically bubble gum, I guess. But it'll also be at Monaco this coming weekend. A huge crash in Q1 after Tsunoda loses it in the Villeneuve chicane. Weird because they cut to it, and he's in the barriers, but across the gravel, and none of the gravel in the shot was disturbed. So you're like, how did he get there? But he just sort of skipped across the top of it and hit the barriers backwards, which caused him to roll once. Thankfully, it came to rest right side up. Red flagged the session. The session is restarted, and with about 3 seconds remaining, we cut to Colapinto in the barriers after losing it at the exit of turn 2. And I didn't notice it at the time, but at least on the TV graphics, Behrman completes his lap and jumps to 10th place a second before the red flag comes out for Colapinto. This time was then deleted. Haas asked for some clarification from the FIA, who stated that, well, actually, the red flag came out 3 seconds before Behrman crossed the line, which has got to be a tough one to take.
Yeah.
Well, but it didn't is the really damning thing. Like the video review showed pretty conclusively that there was no red flag displayed for when he crossed the line. What they're arguing, what the FIA sort of argued in this case was, well, according to our internal system, the red flag should have been displayed by this point, so we're going to disallow the time. Yeah. But the light that showed that the session was now red flagged did come on after Behrman had crossed the line. Anthony Davidson, I think it was, had a pretty good breakdown of this. So did little Brundle, actually on F1 TV, where it's really confusing because with 3 seconds left, all sorts of red lights are coming on to signal the session is over.
Right.
But the actual red flag indicators were not deployed. So it left a really sour taste because Haas felt, and I basically agree, that from everything you could see, that time probably should have counted, right? Like, this is the FIA's argument is like, well, according to our timing and scoring system, like, it shouldn't have counted. But for everything that actually like went out onto the track that was displayed, like, he made it. And so it's kind of a bummer.
Yeah, bummer his team maybe as well didn't flag it. You know what I mean?
They did.
They did.
They
Okay.
requested clarification from the FIA, and it seems that was not enough.
At the risk of having my entire family abused on the internet, Colapinto back to his crashing ways quickly on his return to Formula One.
Yeah, that didn't take long.
He did wreck a lot of cars last year,
He did.
and yes, this is not a track that forgives mistakes. Like,
No.
during qualifying day, I was like, I kind of see why they maybe need to not race here anymore. The consequences for small mistakes are pretty terminal, and the Tsunoda crash looked a little frightening.
Yeah.
But we'll see if I felt that way the next day. But
Yeah.
during qualifying, I was like, I see some of the issues.
Yeah, and we're not racing here anymore. Is that right? Do we have confirmation on that? I know
Yeah,
that was the
it's
rumor.
off the grid, the calendar for the foreseeable future.
Yeah. Okay.
And it was, in fairness, kind of only just brought back on. You know what I mean? Like, how many years have we raced here now? 3 or 4?
Did they bring it back for COVID?
I think it was
I
a
think
ground
so.
track,
Yeah, I think it was a COVID. Yeah, it was because it was like, oh, where can we go that's set
Right.
up pretty much, and
And that's
that
why they
was
had
one
to
of them.
call it the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix. 'Cause we already had
WEC
it.
raced there a few weeks ago. Real good sports car track.
Okay.
You can go side by side everywhere.
Well, side by side along the grid are these drivers in pole position. Oscar Piastri just 0.03 of a second ahead of Max Verstappen. Then George Russell qualifying third on medium tires. That was sort of the gambit that was played by a couple teams here, which I'll recount. Lando Norris fourth. Fernando Alonso is another one on medium tires here, getting his Aston Martin up to start fifth. And then the two Williams cars, Carlos Sainz and Alex Albon in 6th and 7th, both Williams in the top 7. Great to see. And then Lance Stroll in the other Aston Martin. I believe he also set his time on medium tires.
Yes.
Isaac Hadjar 9th and Pierre Gasly starting 10th. You'll note I have not said any Ferraris yet. Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton both knocked out in Q2 by those Aston Martins on their medium tires. Hamilton will start 12th, Leclerc 11th. Hamilton starting on the hard tires, just like Kimi Antonelli and the other Mercedes behind him. Gabriel Bortoleto is the one that got through when Oliver Behrman was knocked out in Q1. He will start 14th. He also crashed at the end of free practice 1. Liam Lawson will start 15th, followed by Franco Colapinto, Nico Hulkenberg, also starting on hard tires, Esteban Ocon, Oliver Behrman in 19th, and Yuki Tsunoda having set no time in 20th. Yeah, he and Behrman will also start on the hard tires. Danny, do you want to take us through the start of the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix?
Sure. Lights out and something else, as Ted Kravitz would say. They all get away pretty fast, but who has a really good start is George Russell, who is fighting up the inside of Oscar Piastri. He's almost neck and neck with Verstappen as they get down to turn 1. That forces Piastri to sort of defend a little bit more up the inside than perhaps he would like. He's sort of like hedging his bets a little bit as they get down to the first turn at Tamburello. He eventually does sort of force Russell to brake because he's right up on his gearbox. And then Piastri drifts to the center of the track to try and adopt a line that is closer to the racing line. And then super Max Verstappen pulls off just a sort of a physics-defying overtake, shall we say, where he manages to get the braking done around the outside and then get the traction to overtake basically ahead into that second apex on Tamburello, technically turn 2 and 3, that is, and gets the overtake done and is flying away down the straight after turn 4 with Piastri in second, now largely fighting Russell to make sure that he's not going to lose 2 places at the start of the race. Really incredible overtake.
Really was one of the best moves I can remember. And I think to your point, Danny, just for how unreal it seemed. It's like whenever I don't know, maybe you watch someone play a racing game and you're like, well, if I were playing, I would just simply not brake going into that corner. And he somehow keeps it on the track. It's just, I don't know.
We never see that move. Either somebody's forced to back out or there's contact, or eventually someone's cutting the chicane. That is just like what is going to happen. And the way that car just sort of like, it looked like a fish swimming along a river, right? It was just like completely like planted there. Obviously like Piastri checked up way too hard in turn 1. Like he kind of, I suspect maybe it was trying to like cover off Russell because Russell was coming so fast. Russell got on the radio and was like, what the hell is Oscar doing? So like Piastri did sort of put himself out of position and gave away what had been a pretty decent start. But yeah, I still kind of don't know how Max had with a car full of fuel to make that corner and seal that overtake was really something.
I don't want to pee on the parade necessarily, but I also think that it is maybe worth mentioning that had the roles been reversed, I would have suspected that the Max Verstappen in first place where Piastri was might have had a little bit of trouble with traction maybe around that turn and not left so much space up the inside. Like we never see Max getting overtaken up the inside like this. Maybe because other drivers can't pull off a move like this, but also Max shuts that door and Oscar didn't, and it allowed Max to continue on the track as well, I think. In a manner that he is not often so, charitable.
Yes. All right. Well, lap 3, as things get underway here, Leclerc on the inside of Gasly goes off into the gravel, bounces around a bit, then comes back on the track, losing a handful of spots. I think this looked worse on Leclerc than it actually was in the initial shot, because from the onboard, it looks like Leclerc brakes fairly early, and it seems like Gasly just couldn't stay on the track. He loses a few positions. Lap 10, Norris is stuck behind Russell for a number of laps, and it seems like everyone on the mediums is falling off more rapidly than predicted. So everyone's like looking around, thinking about how to get off of these.
Well,
yes, Rob.
Because that's worth noting. Mediums this year were last year's softs,
right?
Because Pirelli introduced that like super wicked mega soft C6 compound
butter tire.
Kind of got outperformed by the medium in quali.
Yeah.
But I kind of, unlike the C0 last year, which everyone was like, boo, we hate the super hard tire. The C6 did seem to have like the right quality. The tire allocation this weekend, I think, produced some interesting strategy.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was the one where Lando went up in the grass as well, right?
That one is, he attempts a pass on the grass, trying to get by Russell, but thinks better of it. One lap later, he tries it at turn 1, but no dice, and then finally gets it done at the second chicane.
Any other race would have been overtake of the race. But Verstappen's was just so good, but this was delicious. Yeah. Around the outside of a chicane is no laughing matter. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Liam Lawson tried this on Perez in Mexico. Didn't work out so good. This was a super overtake.
Yeah. Let's see here. Yeah, lap 14, Piastri is the first of the front runners to pit. Has a slow stop, 3.6 seconds. Norris goes much longer and comes in on lap 29, has a quicker stop, 2.1. And by this time, most of the field had pitted except for Verstappen and a number of others who have thus moved up. Albon, Hadjar in second and third, Antonelli sixth, Antonelli fifth, Hamilton sixth, and then Hulkenberg and Behrman up into 9 and 10. And Tsunoda, having started from the back, is now in 12th. So you can imagine their elation when we get a virtual safety car for the stricken Esteban Ocon, handing them a cheap pit stop. So they all pit. Most everyone else pits too to try to get to the end on a new set of hards.
Simply lovely, as Max would say.
TM. Yes, Rob.
Where did your F1 TV start to crap?
Oh yeah.
Because this
I
appears to have been a global issue, right? Like the app just like is like a busted file.
I couldn't believe it when you said it this morning because I was like, oh, it was just me, and it was around, I think, lap 20.
lap 20 or 23.
Yeah.
So I had to bail and watch the extended highlights. And I saw a bunch of people on our Discord complaining about the same thing.
I managed to get it working, but it just was a case of letting it take forever to load. And it did eventually start playing. But there was a problem with some element of the file after that time. And it couldn't get it working. Rob had the Galaxy Brain version of using his YouTube TV to watch the ESPN version of that, which
isn't pleasant. ESPN's video quality is wretched.
I'm so sorry.
Which sucks. They carry so many sports, but like they are. I gather it's like ABC affiliates have some of like the worst standards in the business. So ESPN sets to minimum spec for ABC affiliates. So I think I'm not sure. There are times I'm like, is this actually going out in 1080?
Wow, nice.
Yeah.
And now that you've gotten used to 4K on the F1 TV app, you're used to being able to see the beads of sweat rolling off of Lewis Hamilton's.
I'll take the fucked up colors. Well, those are happening on the ESPN feed too.
You have to pay more.
Nobody is tuning those onboards.
No, you have to pay more for proper color grading. That's F1 Premium Plus, I think, as they stop all that milky yellow shit on the onboard cameras.
They set the white balance on that cloudy day in China and just never looked at it again.
So everybody else pits. Exceptions are Alonso, Stroll, and Colapinto. Piastri also pits again, coming out in 4th, moving Albon up to 3rd, which, given how tough this track is to pass on, really moved me to the edge of my seat. Are we going to get an Albon podium? We get going again on lap 34, I think it was a few laps before that, but on lap 34, the Ferraris suddenly seem to come alive. Hamilton getting past Antonelli for 7th, and then 2 laps later getting by Hadjar with DRS into 5th. And lap 40, Albon, who, like Hadjar, got the benefit of that virtual safety car stop, gets passed by Piastri on the main straight with DRS for 3rd position. And Albon now 9 seconds ahead of Hamilton. Lap 46, though, another car pulls over.
Being hunted by the torpedo, as he probably felt.
Yes, of Hamilton, lap 46, another car pulls over with a mechanical issue. This time it is local boy Kimi Antonelli, who apparently, at least during practice, they mentioned that he had given some tickets to his teachers and classmates.
Yes.
He goes to school like just up the road.
Bologna or something,
Yeah. So bummer for him to go out with a mechanical issue. He had been running in 8th place. This brings out the full safety car. The 2 front runners, Verstappen and Norris, both come in for new tires, along with Hamilton, Albon, Hadjar, Alonso, Stroll, Colapinto, and Bortoleto. This drops Norris into 3rd behind Piastri. And then on restart, we have Leclerc in 4th, followed by Albon, Russell, Hamilton, Sainz, Hadjar, and Hulkenberg.
I forget. Was it here that Norris had stopped 1 lap before the safety car? Was it this one or the virtual? I can't remember. I think it was here.
Yeah.
But like it was like Norris got extremely unlucky again with safety car timing, where he paid the full penalty for the stop, and then like literally nobody else who was in his race ever did pay the full time delta. This is also the moment where if Leclerc ever burns down the Ferrari factory, it's like which seems increasingly likely by the race weekend. So he gets on the radio. he's been on a long stint. His tires are shot, and he's like, why aren't you bringing me in? It's a safety car. And like, we don't have a tire that can make the end of the race. And he's like, no, even the softs be better than what I'm on. They're like, it's 17 laps, Charles. The soft will not make it. But as I think Ted Kravitz pointed out a few minutes later, it was 17 laps, but as it turns out, 6 of them were under safety cars. So would that have changed maybe the outlook? But Ferrari rules it out and kind of leaves Leclerc on this really washed set of tires for the end of the race, which is where he begins to seethe. And that's gonna continue to build through the rest of the race.
Yes, we get the restart on lap 54. Verstappen pulling ahead pretty quickly. Lap 57, Hamilton on some new hard tires steams by Russell on the main straight into turn 1. Lap 58, Norris does the same thing to Piastri, whose tires are 16 laps older.
He did it again, and they didn't crash, thankfully. Because Piastri ate a little bit of curb on that first turn, and it looked like he was
it was not a. There's not a lot of margin there.
No.
And then lap 60, Albon, who's also on some new tires, tries to get around Leclerc at turn 1, pulls even with him into the corner, but has to bail off track into the gravel, and instead of getting past Leclerc, loses a place to Hamilton behind him. The move is noted by race control. Hamilton, meanwhile, is on a charge, and on the next lap gets by Leclerc into turn 1 for 4th position. And as we start the final lap, Leclerc is told by his team to give the position back to Albon, apparently fearing a penalty. And this happens on the main straight. And then go ahead.
Well, do we this is Leclerc's furious. He gets on the radio and it's so this is just, the classic, this is just what it is now.
Racing
you can't
now,
even defend. You can't. But here's the thing. I think he was right. I looked at that. I love Alex Albon. You know this. I'm big. This guy's cool. We love Team Torque. Woo! all about that life. But that was just hard and pretty clean racing. Albon was desperate to make the move at the end of the race, and there wasn't space, and he went off. But I didn't see Leclerc do anything particularly malicious. For me, that is one of those cases where, if you're Ferrari, if they'd gotten a 5-second penalty with the field compressed like that, it would have been devastating. If they'd slapped him with the 10, he's out of the points, I think, at that point. So I do understand they did not want to be playing with that fire, but I think there's also a component of it's going to sit real poorly with a driver when your team makes you give up a position, then you look at the footage later and you're like, why did you just... Because it's kind of not standing by your driver, right? To a degree, it's no, go argue to the stewards. I was doing my job. And he was sort of furious on the radio, and I don't love the decision from Ferrari there. I think that was a case where I think you had enough on tape that... Because the stewards had been somewhat lenient about some, clashes on track earlier. So I think, I think that was a case where you hold the position, you argue your case. And Ferrari played it conservatively and further buried Leclerc.
I think it's interesting because that overtake is sort of the one that they have been adjudicating against Verstappen for doing habitually. The sort of, break a little bit. Maybe you're not ahead at the apex, but you basically, lose a bit of track position, traction on the exit of that turn, go a little bit wide and force somebody else off. And they've largely sort of started litigating that one because of the habitual nature by which Max has been doing it. So in a way, I feel like I kind of understand, where, this may be an element of sort of, bias that happens when you talk about Verstappen in those situations, just because there's a boy who cries wolf element there. But it is funny where you see somebody like Leclerc who doesn't habitually drive cars off the track, and you look at that overtake and go, that's just racing. But unfortunately, he has to get scooped up in the same, we can't have one rule for one driver and another rule for another. It isn't fair. But yeah, I understand what Rob is saying with this one for sure. But it's just kind of, that's not where we live at the moment with this particular problem. So and also honestly, I think as it comes to the rules on this one, they said Albon was ahead a bit, but like, was he? You know what I mean? Like,
it's the classic. You can get ahead because you're diving.
Yeah.
Like it's one of those things where here's the thing: if he'd managed to stick it, and like I might have said, let him keep it. Like if he'd sort of driven Leclerc off the track or something, or banged wheels, because that's the other thing. If you go in, you'll bang wheels. I think Sainz and Tsunoda had another clash in that exact fashion, which they penalized Yuki for last week for doing that. So it's a weird. This exact scenario, I think you're onto something there, Danny. Having been nice and given Max his flowers earlier in the show, I do think there is a little bit of domino meme, like Max habitually tests these rules. And you end up with a lot more like steward intervention in these first corner like chicane incidents.
And then I think again this shows that like Verstappen's overtake was really incredible. Albon would have made this one work if he had been given the space probably. So it's it takes two to tango, and sometimes being sporting makes for wonderful moments in the sport as well. Even I guess if it's you can't ask these guys to not drive to win, though, is the problem. So the rules.
They have perhaps a crisis of identity. They think, what will the French think of me if I put Bear into a wall? Yeah, there's a bit of like motorsport kind of reward that sort of like ruthless. Yeah. It's on you to avoid the crash. I'm not going to. But we sure do benefit when we see the space given because it generates some of those like incredible highlights. And I think you make a good point. The issue about leaving racing room, especially in those left-right handers, is if you actually leave the racing room, you massively disadvantage yourself through the corner.
Yeah.
Like that's not even the line anyone takes.
Yeah, right. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, at the end here, Max Verstappen comes home on the top step of the podium. Second place, Lando Norris, and in third, Oscar Piastri. In fourth, Lewis Hamilton, having made up 8 positions from where he started, finishes fourth. Alex Albon makes up 2 places to finish fifth, and Leclerc himself makes up 5 to finish sixth. George Russell loses 4 spots to finish seventh. He was not really saying great things about the performance of his car this weekend. Hamilton, though, was like, I don't want to jinx it, but the car is pretty good. Carlos Sainz finishes 2 spots down in 8th. Isaac Hadjar keeps his 9th place.
Nice.
And then Yuki Tsunoda from the back of the grid comes home to finish 10th and gets 1 more championship point. Fernando Alonso called himself the unluckiest driver in the world. Yeah. He loses 6 positions from his starting spot and comes home with 0 points. Behind him, we've got Hulkenberg, Gasly, Lawson, and Stroll in 15th. Then Colapinto, Behrman, Bortoleto, and the DNFs of Antonelli and Ocon. That is your Emilia Romagna Grand Prix race weekend. We are going to take a quick break, and then we will be back with the news. The news, Rob. Newsman Rob Zachney has put together a
smorgasbord.
Yes.
If you will.
What is going on?
So, I know we're kind of all tired talking about Mohammed bin Salem, but a couple moves this past week that did start to feel like I maybe need to change tack on a few things. The first was, we all remember the heartwarming sight of Anthony Hamilton greeting Isaac Hadjar after his off at Australia during the formation lap, and what a touching moment it was, and what a sensitive soul Anthony Hamilton was.
As long as you weren't Helmut Marko.
Yeah,
Men
exactly.
Crying.
Well, and also what's a little funny here too is, and obviously maybe he's mellowed a bit, but he was not the gentlest hand with Lewis, certainly.
Right.
When he was sort of mentoring him. But either way, it was a moment that sort of went viral. A lot of people, saw it as a very sensitive and kind thing to do. And so in the last week, Hamilton Sr. was appointed to a driver mentorship position. He's been working in advisory capacity for the FIA, and he's now going to take an official role with the FIA's Young Driver Development Pathway. All of that is capitalized. That is a term. And then apparently this is again. Coming from Autosport, they're reporting on a piece from the Times. Hamilton is said to have impressed FIA President Mohammed bin Sulayem with his work as the governing body aims to smoothen the pathway for young drivers from grassroots level to a professional career, which has led to an official function. This to me sort of seems like we all like Anthony Hamilton. We all loved that moment with Isaac Hadjar. Let's do something that people can get behind.
Let me cash in on this cred.
Maybe that's a really cynical way of looking at it, but just the timing wise, with him in full flailing mode and having tried to single handedly put V10s back in the car, this kind of feels like, hey, but I could be cool too.
It's also a real sort of C-suite reaction to this, where it's like, oh, something they seem to really like this guy. How can I consolidate, or how can I quantify and give a job position to the act of being empathetic? Let me see if we can just let's wrap a role around this guy, make him head of empathy, head of, it's not like I don't know. It's not like there seems to be, what are the pathway issues with young drivers right now? We seem to have too many of them and they're all really mature. So I don't know what I'm sure there are some systemic issues with this, but
well, I mean, if they're seriously working on the money thing, yeah, because Lewis, as he often points out, hold on,
we got a big Ben Sulayem fan there in the back.
Put me in the car.
Exactly, yeah. Stop cursing, Rob.
But yeah, so the issue with this also feels like it might be shoring up some support before this Carlos Sainz challenge. You like a beloved racing dad?
Yeah.
Well, I can get one too. You don't have to fire me and replace me with Carlos Sainz. I'm a package deal. The other thing that the FIA did is they are apparently backing off the swearing stuff at long last. So this has obviously been a hugely unpopular point of emphasis the FIA has made. So they began to walk it back and step down a bit from the really severe penalties they had for swearing. They stepped away from that, and then the drivers were still like, "Fuck this guy." That's basically it. So to be clear, F1 drivers, Autosport laying out what the regs were. F1 drivers under the initial plan for fighting swearing, they could be fined €40,000 for a first offense and double that plus a ban for a second offense. That is now reduced to €5,000, and the threat of a ban has been removed. But when they're asking the drivers, they said basically it's ridiculous that you get no credit for this. It was a ridiculous stance in the first place. It never should have been put in place. And we weren't consulted on the institution of the policy, and we were not really consulted. When they revoked the policy, nobody talks to us about this. We just have rules handed down on us. And, that's just the way things operate with the FIA right now. That was sort of Russell's position as head of the Grand Prix Drivers Association. So, obviously this removes a real point of conflict between Ben Sulayem and literally the stars of every sport the FIA oversees. This was never, nobody liked this policy. but it did not produce any sort of credit.
Yeah. Well, at least we can stop talking about it. That's what I like about this. What do you want to go to next, Rob? You want to keep it in F1 or you want to?
Yeah, let's keep it in F1. That's okay. We'll get to the IndyCar, folks. The IndyCar stuff is coming. Don't worry.
Mm-hmm. The people were raving about it in the Discord or calling for Rob's take. So we will get there.
So we had mentioned that there is a reputation that Argentine fans have in sport, particularly online behavior, that we saw a bit with Agustin Canapinto in IndyCar a couple years ago that eventually probably cost him a seat because like his fans were brigading other drivers, including his teammates. And like some folks had, I think in our community had talked about, this is kind of like that online community tends to be super vituperative, and it can be a real issue because they, it was cute, right? When Colapinto joined F1, it was this huge outpouring of support. Like Argentina doesn't have a ton of motorsport stars, so every time like one crops up, it's a bit of a sweet local boy makes good type of story, but then it comes with this undertow of reaction, and that seems to have happened here where so apparently Yuki and Colapinto got into it a little bit during practice at Imola, and to Colapinto's credit, he has he's expressed that fans should be respectful and sensitive with online behavior. Nevertheless, Yuki's Instagram was like flooded with racist abuse following a practice clash. Not to be like we're talking about practice, but it is kind of silly that like that. But that is the fever pitch these things operate on. The guys get crosswise with each other during a practice session, and it triggers this backlash. And remember, like those fans had also kind of harassed Jack Doohan as well. So it's pretty bad out there for people who sort of are seen as being between Colapinto and something Colapinto's trying to achieve.
Yeah, that's really annoying.
Yeah, hard for. Yeah, it's one of those. What do you call this? Not the. I was about to say the Streisand effect, but that's not what I'm saying. The one where when you maybe it is the one where you point at something online or you try and kill something and then it gets even bigger. Like I can see how Colapinto is he's a young guy too. Maybe this is all a bit much or a bit confusing, but I can see how it's a problem if they start to make a real point of this. It's just if these are trolls, it's just gonna do it more and more. You know what I mean? This stuff dies in silence more than anything else. But yeah, it's hard to do that.
It is. I think it poses a problem for him too. These fans are what a driver brings to the table is sort of a package, right? If your performance is strong enough, then that's going to overrule a lot of other things. But Colapinto has not demonstrated that to this point. He has promise, but also he wrecks a lot of cars. Yeah. He's sort of your definition of a marginal F1 driver right now. That might not remain the case, but that's where he is right now. And when you're on that sort of marginal bubble between two drivers, one of them has a fan base that is generating negative headlines that associate you with like online abuse and racism, and the other driver doesn't. Eventually, you're going to be like, we need to get this guy and his shitty fans out of here, which kind of is what happened with Canapinto and IndyCar. That was part of the story, and I'm a little worried that it happened here too.
Do you think Briatore is the guy who thinks that?
Well, if he wanted no more, like he is getting so much nya right now. Like it's not coming from the driver though; it's coming from his fans. That's the problem. True. He thought he was getting rid of the nya, but he didn't think about the online nya.
Yeah. How do you spell that?
NH. I think that's what they did on the We can check the subtitles on Drive to Survive.
That's true.
I would have said NYEH, but yeah.
NY.
Yeah, I think, or maybe an Enya over the top.
What's an Enya? Little curvy thing?
Like jalapeno.
Sail away.
It's the tilde over the end.
Like Orinoco Flow?
The tilde over it.
Is that what we're saying?
Yeah.
Sail away.
It's also like Orinoco Flow.
Yeah.
Yeah, sail away.
Shout out. Irish culture right there, baby.
Stepping away from F1 a little bit, did you all see that Max snuck into a test session at the Nürburgring?
I heard he broke the record with a fake name.
He did do that, yes.
On his first go.
Just like Kim Jong-il.
Yep. In a Peugeot 306.
In a bit of tongue-in-cheek, I think, him trying to sneak into a race at a test session at a German track, he raced under the name Franz Herrmann. So yeah, German Schmidt, basically, like just Hans Schmidt type name. And so yes, the thing that appears to be uncontroversial is that he really did well at this test. And there's lots of rumors that like Max long term does want to do some endurance car racing. There's been a lot of fantasy booking of like, what if him and Yost were teammates in a car, which I'm not sure is as awesome an idea as people think. But so this kind of raised some eyebrows, because does it indicate that Max is starting to think about like life beyond F1 and is just kind of curious about other races, other experiences? But also, who doesn't want to take a Ferrari around around the Nordschleife? And so by all accounts, he did really, really well. And yes, he set the lap record on his first time out. And then there was some controversy around that, because some of the endurance car professionals were like, no, there's no way that happened. His car wasn't, he set a record, but the car wasn't in conformity with the balance of performance standards for these time tests. So of course if he set the record, that's probably because his car wasn't nerfed the way,
endurance.
These other cars are.
Yes.
And Verstappen's kind of angrily denied that. He said the car was in compliance with those balanced performance specs. There wouldn't have been much point in doing the test without having it in conformity, because then the benchmark wouldn't have been any good. So he came away from that feeling. His feelings were hurt a little bit. Interestingly enough, Tsunoda was asked about it. I don't know if he was being tongue in cheek or whatever. He just said, "I don't believe you can do Nordschleife and set a record in your first time out. It's too complicated a track, so I don't really believe it." But whoever this Mr. Herman is, he does seem like he's very good. But legend. It was interesting. Like, there is a bit of like the sports car guys are like, no, that didn't happen. It couldn't happen. And if there's any driver you could believe could show up and just like coldly set a course record at the Nordschleife, it's probably Max, right? Like, especially because all he does is do sim racing.
Sim racing, yeah.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like, he's a very accomplished F1 driver, but when it comes to sports car racing, he's basically the kid from the Gran Turismo movie. Like, he's probably done a shitload of Nordschleife sessions.
Yeah.
Just hasn't done it in the wild.
He's played a lot of Gran Turismo 1,
Yeah.
He knows the analog sticks. Well, wait, PS1, did they have analog sticks? Maybe not. He just went straight D-pad on that one. Yeah. Pure race. That's real racing. Yeah. As Ayrton Senna said, D-pad is real. That's real racing.
That's right. And finally, Rob, going further afield of F1.
It's the month of May at Indy. And Yet again, the Penske's penalized for rules infractions, which, as we might remember, they did some really sketchy stuff with, having push to pass available when they shouldn't have last year. And a lot of people said that whole team appeared to have been caught red-handed cheating. And nobody was really happy with sort of the lightness of the penalties they received, or
Penske,
the way
the owners of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and of IndyCar.
Yes, yes. That was the other thing. Is like it's very much a Caesar's wife needed to be over reproach, and last year they were very much not, and they didn't have good explanations for what they'd done because probably they were cheating. Like that is there wasn't a nobody found that explanation compelling. So like there was a lot of ill will about Penske and particularly like Joseph Newgarden in the wake of that. This year, I think my take on this is there's a little bit less meat on those bones. Like, so what happened is they qualified the cars, and then they sort of failed the scrutineering check and were sent to the back of the grid. And so their IndyCar, their Indy 500, barring some wild turns of events, they're not really in contention to win. They're in the 32nd and 33rd places with I think Newgarden and Power. But immediately, like them failing a scrutineering check and getting penalized immediately set a lot of people's hackles up. Like, what's Penske up to again? Alex Palou said that it was unfair that they've been sent to the back of the grid. They should have been thrown off the grid and forced to re-qualify in last chance qualifying. IndyCar is a multi-day like knockout qualifying thing. And there is a last chance qualifying. It's very high stakes. It's very dramatic. And it's not a fun place to be. But Palou's position was that's where they should have been sent rather than just demoted while retaining a position on the grid. The explanation coming from Penske and the IndyCar president, Doug Bowles, basically confirms this. Penske did some patchy repair work, and they had basically altered the car through their patching between when it passed scrutineering for qualifying and then what they were going to be sending to the grid. Those repairs they had made changed like some of the like aerodynamic character of the car, and it does come from like they were sort of filling in some I think like slightly damaged parts, and so like that is just kind of a classic like Parc Fermé type violation. Like they had to tweak some things on the car, and then IndyCar said that is no longer the same car, you're penalized. But Palou's position is, well, yeah, everyone knows that's how it works. Like, what was Penske doing trying to like sneak? They were out there with like torches, basically, like changing stuff on the car, which you're clearly not allowed to do. So it's not like it was a benign. It's not like it's a completely benign mistake, because everyone knows that like if you do this stuff, you're going to lose your grid spot. I think this is a lot of people are still pissed at Penske.
What did you make of all the Palou had a dodgy crash. I think Scott McLaughlin had one as well. A lot of them people were saying maybe it had to do with the heat on the track. It was pretty bubbly out there, but also with these new hybrids that maybe the torque that they're getting maybe on some of these upshifts is because they're losing the rear on a lot of these, like at the end of turns, and so you know what I mean. Like it's sort of like a funny way to do it, and they're eating up these safer barriers by the minute. What did you see some of those impacts? What did you make of that?
Yeah, I hadn't really clocked that. To me, it looked pretty normal for IndyCar.
Right.
Like, I mean, it's oval racing's tricky and hazardous, and there's not much room for error. And I'm with you. For me, primarily, it does seem to be like, man, when the sun is out and there's not a cloud in the sky, that track surface changes a lot.
Right.
And over the course of a qualifying session, they do 4 fast laps. It is a lot of wear and tear and strain on the car and the tires. And so, like, for me, when I see that stuff, I will generally think, because it's so much more likely to happen when you sort of get the sun, like sun beating down on the track as the day goes on. To me, I put it primarily down to the tires, but it's a good point. Like it does feel like you're seeing more uncharacteristic bobbles in the era of these like capacitor fed hybrids. And yeah, I think the jury's still out on how great they've been for the sport. But yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if a bit of the throttle response is no longer as predictable as it used to be.
Indy 500 on this coming Sunday.
That's right. Often sharing the same weekend as the Monaco Grand Prix, although I think this is the last year that is happening. So
we're taking Monaco off the calendar, are we? Finally.
Bumping it by a few weeks. Danny, tell us about Monaco.
Monaco, the Principality of Monaco in Monte Carlo in the south of Spain. It is where a lot of rich people live. Sorry, south of France. It is where a lot of rich people live. Getting confused with Gibraltar there as well. They should do a race on Gibraltar. It should go through that airport that already has a road going through its main runway. So this is the classic Formula One race. If you've never seen it, this is the hugging the tight streets of Monaco. A ridiculous place for cars to drive, but it is part of F1 history, so we will stick with it. The first race in the streets of Monte Carlo was in 1929 when Cigarette, maybe Anthony Nogue's progeny are part of our title sponsors. Cigarette magnate Anthony Nogue and some of his buddies put together a race in 1929. When the F1 calendar started officially in 1950, this was the first race was on, and it has been on the calendar since 1955. So it's been pretty much non-stop since then. 78 laps around this track, 3.337 kilometers or 2.07 miles. And Nelson Piquet has my favorite quote about this. He said, "It's like riding a bicycle around your living room." Not much space here for error. Lots of walls right on the edge of the track.
Yeah, my favorite one is that my favorite, fact about this is that you could not get this on the calendar today. It is only because it is grandfathered in that it is here.
It does not pass the current requirements for safety with regard to lots of things, but runoff areas being one of them. There are a couple of places where there are sort of escape roads, almost like those runaway truck roads they have on mountain passes here in America, where they just have like, oh, there's a straight. If you're not going to make the turn, just throw the car down here. And you'll see a bit of that going on. The track it's got a couple of formations or configurations rather, and it has changed a little bit over the year as the turn 11-10 section of the new chicane, appropriately named Nouvelle Chicane, is a new one to take a little bit of the speed out of what was a pretty tricky turn 12 at Tabac, which is that tobacco in French? Tabac? I don't know actually.
Yeah, I think it's because it's a tobacco shop. There used
must
to be one there.
Yeah, which makes sense. There is a configuration called piscine, this area at the end of turn or sector 2, which is French for pool.
It's because there's a pool there.
There is a pool. Casino is another one. So there's lots.
Why is it called that?
Exactly. So yeah, there's it's one of these tracks that by the end of watching the race, you will be very familiar with the different turns, their names, and sort of what can happen there. Some famous moments over the year. There are too many to mention, so I just grabbed 10 or so interesting ones. You could go back as far as time immemorial for these. I started in 1988 with the famous Ayrton Senna crash at Portier, where he got out of the car and walked to his apartment with his helmet. One of two great crashes where the driver walks somewhere that is not his pits, which we'll get to in a second. 1992 was a terrific battle between Mansell and Senna. Senna eventually, Senna not letting Mansell overtake, even though Mansell was on his gearbox for the last 4 or 5 laps. kind of a problem here at Monaco. Unless you make a mistake, it's very hard for the car behind you to get past. Livia Panis won his first and only win here in 1996 in a classic race in which 5 of the 21 runners finished the race.
Wow.
It's a funny one to watch the highlights on because there's several drivers who think they're going to win their first race and then it ends up being Panis. In 2000, there was a hilarious traffic jam on, I think it was it during?
Oh, is it the hairpin?
Yes, it was at the hairpin, and several of the drivers had to jump out of their cars and run back to get in other cars. So I'm trying to remember, was there a red flag or something that happened? 2003 saw our first ever Monaco Grand Prix with 0 overtakes. The entire race went by with not a single overtake. A fantastic day in Formula One history. 2004 saw one of 2 Schumacher wobbles here. He crashed under the safety car during the race.
To the best of us.
It does indeed. The next year, though, was the crash gate that maybe didn't happen, which is that Schumacher was on pole, and at Raskas, which is the penultimate turn, basically, he overcooked it and in qualifying, as Alonso is coming around to try and do his fast lap to get pole, Schumacher crashes at Raskas and basically, parks his car. It would have been a yellow flag anyway, but he just parked his car across the whole track. So there was no one else set a time.
Oh no, I crashed.
Maybe that's where Alonso, maybe that's where Flavio got the idea. He's like, one day I'll get him back.
I'll get you.
2006, Kimi Raikkonen doing his best Senna crash, but with a finished twist. He crashes during the race and then takes off his helmet and his shirt and everything else and goes onto his boat and gets drunk with his Norwegian or his Finnish friends who have been there for the entire weekend. And the camera catches him, sitting in his boat with a can of beer as the race is still going on. 2009, Jenson Button won for Braun in that fantastic season. Magic moment for Button and really sort of, I don't know, at that stage, really, I don't know, let people know that Braun were for real that weekend. 2012, Schumi got a pole here after, coming back in years of sort of...
unretiring, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. So that was an interesting one. 2016, we had... Oh, Rosberg, actually, sorry, in 2014, had a similar thing where he crashed, made a flag happen during qualifying to get pole against Hamilton. Ricciardo lost a race in 2016 in terrible fashion. Do you remember they pulled him in for the pits and they did not have the tires ready? Absolutely heartbreaking for him in 2016, an early Shift F1, maybe Alt F1 season that one was. But 2 years later, he got his win. 2018 and was probably his favorite F1 memory, I imagine. Jumping in the pool and all that gas. He got his win in 2018, 2 years after that terrible incident, which is similar to what happened years later when Charles Leclerc had himself a terrible bit of tire strategy. He also binned it on the outlap one time, but then eventually did win last year. Spoilers for Drive to Survive, and that is that's Monaco. It's a race that has given us classic memories throughout the years, but is also very, very capable of being incredibly boring.
Yeah, last 5 winners here. We had Leclerc, as you mentioned, in 24. Before that, Verstappen, Perez, Verstappen, Hamilton. So Verstappen does pretty well here. Also, drivers who tend to do better than their average races. Sainz, Russell, Gasly. Drivers who don't do as well, Stroll and Tsunoda. Ferrari tends to go well here, better overall, I think, or on average than Red Bull and Mercedes. And it is, that's all the standouts I have.
And so much of it is about qualifying. So Saturday.
It really is.
Yeah.
I have tended to rate this race probably higher. I think I have an internal offset because I mentally assume that this is going to be a very, very boring race.
Yes.
And in fact, the last 3 races have exceeded that expectation. Now, does that mean that they would stack up as entertaining races against the rest of the calendar? Maybe not. But I have tended to enjoy Monaco, even though, as you say, Danny, there tends not to be very much passing.
Especially in 2003.
Yeah, yes. Or indeed any. So this weekend, though, weather-wise, we are looking at mid-60s temperature for qualifying day, or let's see, it's 17 or 18 Celsius. Precipitation, though, at qualifying time, which is, I will just double-check here, 4 p.m. local, we are seeing 35% chance of rain.
Ooh.
Yeah, which will be really interesting.
Make it happen.
Light wind. And on Sunday race day, similar temps, and just looks like about 10% chance of rain there. A little stronger wind, like 11 kilometers an hour or 7 miles an hour. And with that, I'll head down to the Drivers' Championship standings. Oscar Piastri remains on top with 146 points ahead of Norris, 13 points ahead of Norris, who himself is 9 points ahead of Max Verstappen in third. George Russell's 25 points back in fourth. Leclerc is 38 points back in fifth. Lewis Hamilton jumps up a spot after the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix to sixth place. He is now 8 points behind his teammate Leclerc. Kimi Antonelli drops 1 place to seventh. He's 5 points behind Hamilton, but 8 points ahead of Albon in eighth. And Esteban Ocon is 26 points behind Albon in ninth place, tied on points with Lance Stroll. Sainz moves up 2 spots to 11th place. Tsunoda is in 12th. He loses a spot. Pierre Gasly also loses a spot now in 13th place. Isaac Hadjar jumps up 2 spots to 14th. Nico Hulkenberg and Oliver Behrman both losing spots in 15th and 16th place. They are tied on points. Fernando Alonso, Liam Lawson, Jack Doohan, Gabriel Bortoleto, and Franco Colapinto all have 0 points. It is the same standings in the constructors. McLaren on top, 279 points. That's 132 points ahead of the second place Mercedes, who themselves are only 16 points ahead of Red Bull in third. Ferrari's in fourth, 17 points back. Williams in fifth. They're 63 points behind Ferrari, but 31 points ahead of Haas. So that is a strong start to the European leg. Haas is in sixth, 6 points ahead of Aston Martin in seventh, 4 points ahead of Racing Bull in eighth, and 3 points ahead of Alpine in ninth, who themselves are just a point ahead of Sauber in 10th. If you would like to join the standings yourself, you can do so in our Shift+F1 Fantasy League. Using the link in the show notes. Here's the podium from the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix. In third place, we have Toro Rosso, complete with exclamation points.
They're back.
They are. And they're in third. In second place, Take a Chance on Max.
Take a chance, take a chance, take a chance.
And in first place, Death to Tilkadrome.
Wow. Okay.
Well, good news for you. Monaco is not a Tilkadrome.
It's not. It predates him. Although, who knows? Maybe his great-great-grandpapa was there with Anthony Nogue drawing around the map.
True.
You know,
could be. But overall, in Fantasyland, in third place, Solidus Snake. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I read this wrong last time? Because now it says Solidus Steak.
Oh, beautiful. Oh, that'd be great if there was like a Konami-themed restaurant. I'd be all about the Solidus Steak.
It's Stake, like the brand.
Oh,
associated
the brand.
with
Okay.
Sauber.
Still pretty good. They were selling those at Sonoma last week. They were selling the steak F1. There was lots of them left if you want to go grab one.
Great.
Shocking.
There was a shot in the, I think, qualifying of a lone fan decked out in Sauber gear.
Love it.
Yeah. Oh. Second place, The Fast of Us 2025. And in first place, F1 banned my team name.
Wow. Shots fired. Take the Ben Salem. Again. That's terrible. Right. Can't win.
My team, by the way, rhymes with orange. 29th overall still.
Wow. Out of how many?
Out of over 1,000.
Jesus.
If you'd like to send us an email, you can do so, shift.f1podcast@gmail.com or f1.cool/emails. You can also hit us up on the socials using the links in the show notes. That's us around the internet. You want to take us around the world, Danny?
Let's race around the world. Yeah.
The Craftsman trucks are getting things started on Friday, May 23rd in Concord, North Carolina at the Charlotte Motor Speedway for the North Carolina Education Lottery 200.
Yep.
Grab
a ticket, get an education, or not.
Get an education by losing, by not winning the lottery.
Yep.
MotoGP is in Silverstone this weekend.
Ooh.
Formula 2 and Formula 3 will be supporting F1 in Monaco. Those DTM cars, they're at the Lausitzring.
The what ring? Which
the
ring?
Lausitzring.
Lausitzring. Oh, I haven't been to Lausitz in weeks.
The NASCAR Xfinity Series also at Charlotte Motor Speedway for the Bet MGM 300. Are we betting on movies now?
Yep, that's it. Who's going to star? What's
this line going to do?
Every casino in Vegas now needs to have their betting app. Caesars, MGM. Maybe there's a Circus one. I'd like that. Probably breaks a lot.
The Motocross Grand Prix is at Ernay in France for the Motocross Grand Prix of France.
Ernay.
The IndyCar 109th Indianapolis 500 is happening this weekend at Speedway, Indiana at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
It's got its own post office. It's its own city, probably.
Not to be outdone, NASCAR also racing at Charlotte for the Coca-Cola 600.
No betting, no education, just pure corn syrup.
Yeah. And Formula 1 is happening this weekend. Friday, not Thursday, May 23rd. Free Practice 1 kicks off in Monaco at 7:30 a.m. Eastern on ESPN2, followed by Free Practice 2 at 11 a.m. On ESPNU. Saturday, May 24th, Free Practice 3 starts at 6:30 a.m. Eastern on ESPN2, followed by qualifying at 10 a.m. on ESPN. But the race, everyone, Sunday, May 25th at 9 a.m. Eastern on ABC.
Easy
over the
1,
airwaves.
2, 3. Yeah. If you tune into that, Rob, get your rabbit ears ready. You'll be dying for that 720p signal you were getting off.
They do that. HD over the air.
Yeah. Beautiful.
That's what's happening this weekend. Danny, what happened this day in the past?
In the past, on this day, let's do this one about Formula 1, shall we? Let's mix it up. The second World Championship event of the inaugural season was held on this day in 1950 at Monaco, just 8 days after the opening round at Silverstone. The race was notable for a huge pile-up on the first lap when a wave from the harbour flooded the track at Tabac Corner. Mother Nature. Who needs fucking rain when you have the moon?
Poseidon.
Exactly, yes. 9 cars were eliminated at a stroke, but one Manuel Fangio was able to avoid the carnage and led home the remaining 7 cars to win his first World Championship race and his first Monaco victory.
Fucking Fangio, man. All story, like so much of his career is just like improbable, like crazy shit that doesn't happen in motorsports anymore. Like only he like won his race by driving through a tsunami and that took out most of the field. Sure. Yep.
It's like something out of like the Old Testament. You know what I mean? It's like some like. Well, we probably have photographs of this. Fangio's fellow Argentine Carlos Reutemann could only manage 3rd place today in 1978 at the Belgian GP at Zolder. As usual for the 1978 season, the Lotus team had it all their own way, and Mario Andretti led home Ronnie Peterson for a 1-2.
Man, I hate to see his social media presence after beating an Argentine.
There was lots of telegrams sent to them.
Yeah.
Probably.
Go fuck yourself. Stop.
If I wasn't so scared of really annoying people, I would have used that for the YouTube thumbnail. That's pretty good. Go fuck.
Oh, that's great. All right. Well, final thoughts ahead of Monaco, Danny.
Oh man, it's much like the casino. This one's a roll of the dice, but it's always a fun weekend. It's always like good racing on, this weekend. So I'll enjoy it. I'll also enjoy watching the support races for this. It's always fun watching the kids drive through this in F2 and F3 as well. It is such a, I feel like there is like so little that you divine about the rest of the F1 season from Monaco, except who's really good at quali. But I mean, one thing we didn't really talk about this weekend is just how speedy Red Bull were this past weekend. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, Monaco's a very, very, very different thing, but I suspect if Max's car at least has enough pace to get him up there, he's usually the guy who's able to pull out that crazy lap. So we'll see.
Yeah. Final thoughts, Rob?
Danny makes a really good point. For all that we've heard about how the McLarens are, miles ahead of all the other cars, that does not appear to have been the case with the Red Bull. I think there might be a bit of, woe is me sandbagging that's come out of the Red Bull camp, but I think you do have to, looking at it, Max is making a contest of this thing, and it didn't look that disadvantaged at Imola. We'll see what happens from here, but similar sort of track. I could see it. If he qualifies well, we have a real shootout here.
Could be. Well, we shall see. If you would like to support the show and get access to all of our bonus episodes, the early ad-free version of the podcast, and the official Shift+F1 Discord, you can do so over at patreon.com/ShiftF1. Have a good race weekend, everyone. We will see you all next week.
Meow.